All right, Senator Rubio, thank you so much for joining us. First off, what can you tell us about federal assistance available to Floridians if it's needed following Dorian, especially along the coast in terms of beach erosion and things like that?
Well, that's an interesting point. I just got off the phone with the governor about 30 minutes ago. So there's a minimum threshold that changes every year that you have to meet before the FEMA assistance becomes available. So the good news is that if the current track continues, we project that we'll be at or just below that threshold amount. The bad news is, of course, that there's all kinds of costs associated with getting ready for one of these storms. I mean, all the contracts they had to activate, the people, overtime hours, and so forth. So we're watching that very closely because we'll need to go to the White House and the federal, the executive branch, and see if we can get some waivers if we don't meet that number to make sure we can get some reimbursements to local and state government for having done all this. And then you said beach renourishment. That's actually not something FEMA does, but that is something we always go for in disaster relief and have been successful at getting through Congress because that's critical to our economy. I mean, beaches are the lifeblood of a lot of our coastal areas and their economies. And so, obviously we're going to watch that very closely and jump all over it. So some of the areas being affected are already undergoing beach renourishment projects as is. So we don't want to see that go to waste.
And Senator, have you spoken to the president about Dorian?
Yes, we've spoken a couple times already, and obviously his attention is now increasingly growing up north from us, in terms of Georgia and South Carolina, North Carolina, but they're still watching Florida very closely, and I'm confident. I can tell you that in his 2.5 years in the presidency, almost 3 years now, we've never asked for anything hurricane-related that we haven't gotten, including 100% reimbursement in some cases. So we're in touch with them, and obviously we're all waiting for this to pass. We'll get a good assessment of what the costs are, and then we'll jump all over it.
Senator, you're from Miami. You know what a Cat 5 storm looks like, the devastation it can cause. Considering Dorian and the decreased threat to Florida, you've got to feel like we do and feel lucky.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's no reason why that couldn't have turned the other way. That could easily have been us instead of the Bahamas. By the way, we're very concerned about the Bahamas. The storm is still kind of sitting over them, so we haven't gotten a full assessment. We've been on the phone this morning with the Coast Guard, the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and sort of what the relief efforts are going to be on our part. It'll start with kind of getting the airport and the seaports open, and then making sure that we've seen a lot of generosity in South Florida, people donating goods and so forth. We have to make sure that stuff is delivered to the right place and to the right people, and that it's the right stuff. So we're watching that as well very closely, and we know that there's going to be some special needs medical cases from the Bahamas that we're going to have to bring over to medical facilities here in Florida.
Following up on the Bahamas, I was wondering what type of response we will be providing, or how can we're getting all kinds of calls and questions into the newsroom, and I know it's too early at this point because really emergency officials have to first get in there and assess what the needs are.
Yeah, we have a very close working relationship with the Bahamian authorities. We've worked together on these in the past in storms, and they've been of assistance to us and some of our efforts in other parts of the Caribbean. So I think we should anticipate we're going to need everything. I mean, right away, in terms of generating energy and power, getting the telecommunications back up, getting their airports reopened with all the safety measures in place, obviously food, water, medical care. There are some people that are going to have to be moved out of the Bahamas and brought over to the U.S. for treatment because either the treatment's not available where they are or they're just not up and operating, people on dialysis, things of this nature. So I think we should anticipate there'll be a lot of needs, and I know that the Coast Guard is chomping at the bit to get in behind that storm and start that initial assessment, and I've already been in touch repeatedly throughout the storm with the Bahamian authorities.
I mean, it's absolutely and utterly devastating. What are you hearing from the Coast Guard here? I mean, what can they tell you right now about their efforts? Because we do know there is a crew that's stationed in Clearwater that's been over there doing water rescues.
Yeah, and so there's already been active measures being taken, but they're trying to they're trying to get overhead on it quickly and sort of identify, and then coordinating with Bahamian authorities to know exactly where to look at and where to be. And then but I know that at the same time as they're doing the rescues, there's already talk about where are we going to stage logistically. Is it Nassau, which seems to have been largely untouched, because you got to have a place for the stuff to come in, all the aid and assistance and workers, and then you've got to get them to the right places. So it's not enough to just deliver goods. You've got to have the ability to deliver some of this, oftentimes into places that are not have no power, as an example, and things of this nature. So there's a lot to do. The good news is the Bahamians are very capable. The U.S. has a very close relationship with them. We work together all the time on things, and so I'm pretty confident we're ready to go and to provide whatever assistance they need. But look, the storm is still over the top of them. I mean, they're still going through this. It's been on them now for 28 hours, and we've never seen an event like that before, certainly not in their history.
And Senator, finally now, of course, the storm potentially taking aim at the Carolinas, so of course we worry about our neighbors to the north. Have you been in touch with your colleagues in those states, and how are you kind of helping them prepare?
Well, like us, unfortunately, they're pretty good at it, too. I talked last night with Tim Scott, Senator from South Carolina. He was at the Emergency Operations Center. They've had more robust evacuations, and so they're ready. I mean, they're in good shape. Obviously, we've got some mutual aid agreements with them as well. And so assuming that the storm passes us largely untouched, we'll be able to free up some local government fire rescue, search and rescue teams and so forth to go up there at the request of their governor. And I wanted to give a shout-out to the National Hurricane Center. You know, if this had been 10 years ago, we would have had massive evacuations through parts of our state because the cone would have been much bigger. They were really able to, every year they get better at the forecasting, and as that cone narrows, it's not just about more certainty for people. It actually helps emergency managers evacuate the right places so you don't have some of the road traffic problems and gas problems and so forth that you have when you have these massive evacuations. It's a real credit to the work they're doing over there.
It seems with every storm there are many lessons learned, and we get better and better at preparing for them. Senator Rubio, thank you so much for your time today.
Okay, thank you.